Alright, what up guys? Pellet Plinker here, and today we're going to be talking about different pellets. Specifically, we're going to be talking about 22 pellets, but I guess this sort of applies to 177. You'll probably have even more and even better and even cheaper options with 177, so it's probably not as big of a deal if you are shooting 177 and not .22. But if you are shooting the 22 pellets, they do get a little bit expensive because you get a lot less of them, and so it starts to matter a little bit more, in my opinion, what you're shooting. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down some of the pellets that I've been using and what I think are best, or at least better, for different scenarios depending on what you're trying to get out of your pellets. Alright, so first of all, we're going to be starting with the Crosman 22 pellets. I lost a lid for this, but I'll get a picture up. But anyways, these are going to be the kind of bottom of the barrel, sort of cheapest pellets. I probably shouldn't be touching these too much without gloves. They are made out of lead. But anyways, these are super cheap. They are pretty low quality, but they're not such a low quality that I would say you shouldn't use them. You're probably going to get quite a lot of variation as far as weight goes, which we might as well bust out the scale and check some of that out. So let's see here. So these are supposed to be 14.3 grains. So let's see how close we get to that. So we got a 14.4, 14.2. So these are actually pretty close. I do find that these tend to be like misshaped fairly often, so they might be pretty close in weight, which is actually pretty nice to know. I haven't actually weighed these yet, but so far they seem to be pretty close in weight. Another 14.4. But I do find that these have a lot of like imperfections, and they'll be kind of like squished or whatever. Gee whiz, I'm getting a lot of lead on me. 14.2. So actually these are the tolerance on these are pretty well, and these are the Hollow Point Premiers, and these are, you get them in 500, and they are $6.24 for 500 of them. So these are going to be the cheapest ones on my list so far. That one was a 14.6, so that one was quite an oddball there. Another 14.4. So these are pretty decent. You got like a range of what, 0.4 or so. I'm sure if I weighed enough of them, I'd find like a 14.1, maybe like a 14.7, who knows. But anyways, these, if you're just going to be sending a fuck ton of pellets down range, like especially if you're using like a little 10-round magazine or something, if you're going to be shooting a whole bunch of pellets, these are good just because you can get a whole bunch of them for real cheap and you don't have to worry about wasting too much money. But anyways, we're going to move on to these guys, which I liked these. These were pretty cool until I realized that they're not actually, I thought these were completely made out of copper when I first got them, which in hindsight, that would have been ridiculous. It would have been way more expensive if they were 100% copper. So these are the H&N Field Target Trophy Power Copper Plate. It does say copper plated in the description. I just can't read. They are 14.66 grains, and you get 200 of them for $12. So they are a bit of a premium pellet, and I wanted to say that they were pretty, they're not that accurate. So we got a 15 there. I don't know if these actually say, no, I'd say 14.66 grains. Okay, so that's interesting. There's quite a variance there. 14.8, 14.8. But I did find that these did quite a bit of damage shooting at like just a steel pan, a Teflon pan too, God forbid. But yeah, it does quite a number on that deal. So we got 0.2 of variance so far, it looks like. Call that 0.4. The thing that I did find is that even though these aren't anywhere close to 14.66, I did find that they had a pretty tight variance compared to some of the less premium ones. 15. I was actually pretty surprised to see that the cheapest ones, the Crosmans, had pretty good tolerance on them. But yeah, these have a decent tolerance. They are very overpriced though. Yeah, I don't know. They call them Field Target Trophy Power. I don't really know why you would use those for target practice, because they are pretty expensive and unnecessarily copper plated, I feel like. Anyways, we got these guys, which I actually forgot to put these on my list. I think these were a little bit more expensive, if I remember. Well, either way, these were probably around the same price. I can't quite remember where these ones came from, but they are a little bit more on the expensive side. These were closer to like $20, I want to say. Oh no, they were like 13. So they were pretty expensive, but it was 13 for 200 of them. And these are a little bit on the heavy side, so that's one thing that you got to watch out for. A lot of the pellets you'll find are pretty heavy, and that works if you have a really, really high-powered rifle. I think at that point you pretty much need the PCP rifles. I'm not even gonna fuck with these, because these, honestly, you probably shouldn't be getting these if you're watching this video. I'm kind of more so talking about like entry-level stuff. If you're shooting 18.5 grain pellets, you're not entry level. You've got a hell of a gun if you're shooting something that heavy. Not that something like the Maxis Swarm or whatever won't send these down range. It's just not enough power for these, which I'll get into that topic a little bit later here, but let's try to continue on with these. These are just the dieseled version of those. Those aren't important. Anyways, though, we got these guys, the Meisterkruglins. I don't even know how to pronounce that one, but these I like. These are pretty decent, actually. I don't remember how good the tolerance was on these, but I did find that as far as like imperfections and things go, like these were the most precisely machined or whatever. They're probably not machined, they're probably casted, but you know what I mean. These are supposed to be 14 grain, and I believe they're pretty damn spot on for the most part. The one literally just changed with the wind. So we got a 14er. We got a 14.2. These are $9 for 250 of them, so they're a little bit up there in price, but they're really not that bad, honestly. So we got about 13.8 to 14.2 range so far, so that's a 0.4 variance, which isn't too bad, actually. If you wanted to get super OCD about honing in your groupings, you could literally weigh all these out and just keep all the 14ers and separate the other ones. But that's a pretty tight tolerance. That's gonna have some effect, but it's not gonna be the worst thing in the world. 14, that's a pretty tight tolerance. I like that. 0.4 of tolerance is not bad at all. But these anyway are supposed to be 12.96 grains. So these are going to be the lightest ones that I've found, at least, that aren't at least just completely insanely overpriced. But yeah, these are going to be the, I guess they're Agent N as well. But these are the Excites, and they are listed as for plinking, which they work really well for plinking, but they also just work really well because they're super lightweight. So they're listed at essentially 13 grains. But yeah, we got 13 grains on that guy, 13 grains on that guy. I remember these being way more off than that. 13 so far. These are fucking dead on. What are you talking about? 0.8 variance. Some of the shit I was weighing. Oh, here we go. 13.4. So that's pretty bad, especially since there should be some that are less than 13. 13.2, 13. They're pretty consistent, but some of those outliers are pretty fucking crazy. 13.2. Like that 13.4 is already like pretty bad. 12.8, so that's 0.6 of variance already. And I swear to God, there was like some 12.6s in there, if I remember correctly. 12.8. So, and you have to consider, like, percentage-wise, since these are a lighter pellet in general, that 0.6 of variance is going to have a lot more of an effect on your groups as far as the velocity of the pellet is concerned. So it does mean a lot more when it is a lighter pellet like this. Like if it was like the 18 grain pellets, you know, that 0.6 of variance wouldn't mean quite as much as it does when you're dealing with a pellet that's 13 grains. So that is something to keep in mind with these. But the price isn't too bad on these. They are $12 for 250, so they are up there as far as price is concerned for pellets. But I do particularly like these just in general for the fact that they have the pretty much lightest grainage that you'll find, at least easily online. It's like with Prime shipping, that sort of thing, because I get all these on Amazon just more or less for convenience sake. But yeah, these all have like Prime shipping and all that, so they're easy to find and easy to obtain, which is something that I think is pretty important. Now, but anyways, getting on to the topic that I wanted to talk about, which is the fact that when you are buying a pellet gun, they will tell you certain things about the FPS that you should be expecting from those pellet guns. And a lot of the times, if not most of the times, the FPS ratings that they're giving you are based off of these super duper light pellets that they use, which you can buy. I found these. They are the Gammo airgun pellets, the PBA Platinum 22, which if you look at any of the Gammo pellet guns, like the one I have here, they're all going to have this. They're going to have their FPS listed, and there's going to be a little asterisk next to it. and it's gonna say, oh, using PBA Platinum pellets. And this applies for all their 22 models and their 177 caliber models, the PBA Platinum pellets, and they're fucking expensive. The 22 ones, at least, I think the 177s might be a bit cheaper, but the 22 PBA Platinum pellets are $16 for fucking 50 of them, which is just absolutely insane. But they have 9.7 grain weight. So when you see the FPS listed on the rifles, like on the box or online or whatever, you will only get that if you're using the 9.7 grain weight PBA Platinum pellets. And that's how they get you. They sucker you into thinking like, ooh, I'm about to get this like 1000 FPS rifle or whatever. And then you find out later that the thing's only shooting about 500-600 FPS because all of the pellets available on the market are, you know, anywhere between like 13 and maybe like 16 grain, and maybe even up into the 18 grain for like the really heavy ones. And then there's ones that are built specifically for PCP rifles that are up into like the 20s, 22, 25 grain pellets, which I haven't fucked with any of those yet. I'm not really trying to break my rifle yet. But yeah, something definitely worth keeping in mind when you are looking for pellets is that you really should be looking for the lightest weight pellets that you can find. These pellet guns, they're pretty much designed and tested to be used with these super duper lightweight pellets most of the time. Any of like the engineering quotes on the box as far as velocities and FPS and penetration or whatever is concerned, it's usually going to be based off of a very specific pellet that they use. And in the case of Gammo, at least, it's going to be these PBA Platinum pellets with 9.7 grain weight. So if you are using pellets that are any heavier than that, you are technically not getting the full performance out of your rifle. To wrap this up, as far as what is the best pellet, that I think depends on what exactly you're looking for from a pellet. If you're looking for something super accurate, I honestly recommend getting something like the Meisterkugelns, whatever you call these. They're pretty precisely made pellets. They have a pretty tight tolerance of about, I think, 0.4 grains is what I measured, which is definitely good enough. It's definitely good enough for pellet gun usage, but they're not super lightweight, but they are lightweight enough. They're 14 grains, so they're on the lighter side, but they're not as light as it can get. And the price is right too. I've seen, what was the price on those? $9 for 250 of them, so not too bad. They are, in my opinion, a little bit on the premium side, but they're more mid-shelf premium. But the Meisterkugeln brand is a really good one, and they do make really nice precise pellets. So aside from just the weight tolerances, they have really good consistent shaping to them, which I really like and appreciate because it makes them fly straighter. So these I really recommend if you really just want something that's going to fly straight and be a little bit more consistent. As far as just economically speaking, like what'll get you the most pellets for the least amount of money, it's pretty fucking hard to beat the Crossmans at what, $6-7 for 500 of them. But just don't expect to be keeping any tight groups with these. I mean, you're not going to be like missing the broadside of a barn or anything like that, but you're not going to be getting very tight groups with these. They don't have the worst tolerances, which I found and was actually kind of surprised by. But as far as shaping goes, I don't know, they just have a terrible molding process. These are not very consistent whatsoever, and you'll get a lot of like really weird groupings with the super cheap ones. So that's something you might want to avoid if you do want something super accurate. But if you are looking for just something cheap to send a fuck ton of lead down range, those are pretty much impossible to beat as far as economy goes. Again, the Excites are going to be really good if you just want to get the most out of your rifle and you want a good bang for your buck as far as super lightweight pellets go. They don't have the worst tolerance in the world. I'm pretty sure I've seen worse tolerances as far as weight goes. They are the H&N brand, so they are actually pretty consistent, and it's definitely a good one because these tend to be without deformations and inconsistencies, which again leads to more consistency downrange, so that's nice. And the price on these wasn't that bad either, if I remember. Oh yeah, it was pretty bad actually. $12 for 250 of them. So yeah, these are a little bit on the premium side, but you will technically get the most out of your rifle using something like this, or preferably something even lighter. So they are kind of worth the premium price, but I do wish they were a little bit more consistent, like the Meisterkugelns, whatever. These are actually really nice for the price. As far as these go, it's hard to recommend these. As cool as they are and as much as I like them, it's hard to recommend them because they are really expensive for the price. They're what was it again? Yeah, it's like 12 bucks for 200 of them. So you don't even get the full 250, you only get 200. They look really cool, but they're not really worth the price. They are, again, they're pretty consistently made. That H&N is a pretty good brand to go with. I think any of their pellets are pretty much gonna be fine to use as far as consistency goes, but I feel like these in particular are really consistent. I don't know if it's like the plating process just makes them like more smooth and more consistent, or what the deal is with that, but I swear these guys are fucking dead accurate. Not worth the price. I would just go with something like this, or maybe one of the other H&N. Try some of the other versions they have. I mean, these aren't too bad, but I feel like you could get a little bit more precise than the Excites. So yeah, hard to recommend these. They're pretty pricey and just not quite worth it, but they are pretty precise. They are pretty decent pellets. They're just, again, really expensive. And then lastly, these Barracudas. It's hard to really judge these because I can't really get the full experience out of these because I don't really have a good enough pellet gun. But yeah, they're really heavy pellets, and it's the H&N brand, so they're pretty good pellets in general. I probably wouldn't recommend them for most people unless you're actually using a PCP pellet gun, because most likely your pellet gun just probably isn't going to be, what do you call it, powerful enough to really get the beans out of these. These are really precise too. 18.8 pretty much across the board so far. These are fucking dead on, so these are really good. So far, pretty much no deviation, so these are really, really good. Might be worth using just because of the consistencies. So again, 18.5 is going to be really, really heavy for pretty much most guns that people are going to be using, whether they're break action or CO2. It's definitely going to be a lot for you. Those are the pellets that I've been using lately. I really like these guys, the Excites and the Meister Kuglins. These are the ones that I've been buying the most consistently. Yeah, depending on what you're trying to get out of your pellets, you might want to use something else. I'm kind of thinking of getting some more of the Crossmans just so I have something to mess around with. These two are probably going to be my favorites. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for the video. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys found it useful and all that stuff. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It definitely helps me out. And I will see you guys in the next video.